Welcome to MalFramework tutorial number 28. We're going to cover two things today. One is the medic bag portion of the RRR, which we didn't cover in the RRR video. And the reason I didn't cover it is because the initial object I put down, its ace interaction hitbox or point, was not easy to find. I don't know what the deal was, so I finally found an object where it was much easier to find. Anyway, what you do is you put in this code right here into an object's INI, and what I ended up getting it to work on was this toilet. And in the INI field I put that, or the init field, I put that heel option code. The other thing we're going to cover is the mortar, and you can read all about this, but basically you need two triggers, and the trigger, so the first trigger you lay down is going to be an area trigger. So the one I made was 50 by 50 by 50, and I called it mortar in the variable. That's what this is. It's mortar, not mortar trigger. You can name it whatever you want. You could name it mortar trigger.
User
I
joined
just
your
named
channel.
mine mortar. I'll show you in the code whenever we get into the mission. Number of shells dropped, 6. Safe distance from player. Player needs to be outside of 50 meters. And the shell type. This is a vanilla shell. I just left it vanilla. But anyways, we'll go and cover both. So what I was talking about in the mortar fire is you have two triggers. In the first trigger, this is the trigger where you want the shells to land. I named it mortar. You could name it mortar trigger. You could name it silver JoJo. I don't care. Name it whatever. And it's an area trigger, 50 by 50 by 50. This is the height. And inside that area, see that blue stuff, that's the trigger. So it's 50 by height, 50 diameter. I put two buildings and a pen, like an animal pen. And then in this trigger, it's a radio trigger. And that's where you put the code mortar. So mortar is the variable name for where you want the mortar fire to actually land. And I had 6 shells, minimum distance from player, minimum safe distance from player 50. And it spawns so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I don't define a shell in the string. I could define a shell, but the default is this vanilla shell. So after this 50, it would be like comma quotes that right there. So with a radio alpha trigger, I had to sync it with the team leader for RT Raleigh. I don't think, but I can't remember if radio triggers work on a dedicated server. So you could also change this just to blue 4 is present, but for right now I'll just leave it as radio trigger. If it was blue 4 present, it would be as soon as you walked into this area, it would drop the mortars. And how you could use it in a scripted mission is you could say blue 4 present. You could set a timer on it, and that way you have the players walk into it, they use binos, they're observing, and then like after 2 minutes, let's say, finally the mortars drop. So it kind of simulates you got eyes on, and you're calling in fire during those 2 minutes. All right, so let's test both. Ouch, not wounded. It's a little too close. There, now I'm wounded. Come over to the toilet. I use the ACE self-interact. There is the heal, and I heal kMaN. As you see, it's got a counter or a timer. It's got the unique flushing handle on the toilet. Healing done, totally healed. All right, now let's go to the mortar area. So even though in the mission editor this radio alpha trigger was also an area trigger, it doesn't matter because I didn't put blue 4 present. I put radio alpha. So there's the village that I created, and I'm going to drop mortars on it. And that's how you use the medic bag and the mortar module. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching the video.